Well, I'm going to talk today about using Zeon at the Atlanta Athletic Club, and then about should you try to consider using it at your golf course in Spain. Fortunately, we will have growers in Spain very soon. Noble Green has bought a license and will be planting Zeon Zoysia there in Spain. So I've got a lot of pictures and a lot of things to show you. If you have questions, feel free to jump in anytime. I'm running two computers here, one in English and one in Spanish, so bear with me if I go slow sometimes. Well, the Atlanta Athletic Club is famous for being the home club of Bobby Jones, and he set a very high standard of sportsmanship, and we try to maintain that same high standards in golf course management. The club was founded in 1898, and Mr. Jones was president of the club for two different terms. He's very important in our history. As I talk about Zeon, please remember that change to Zeon changed my career and my life, because it really brought the club to a whole different level of stature in the golf world. It changed the playing conditions, and it changed our whole management program. So how did I get started with Zeon? That's a good question. One of the ways, I was looking for a better way. I've always looked for what's the next best thing coming. I was desperate. You know, when you have tees that die, you look for something better, and when you've got a problem, it's got to be solved. We had a lot of shade and a lot of cold weather. We put Bermuda grass in, it died. We put Myers Zoysia in, it died. We put the Zeon in, and it's lived for many years. We wound up adding tee sod onto the tees on number 15 and number 13 Highlands, and some of these were par 3 tees. Then we moved on to Riverside. Any tee that had problem in the shade, we solved that problem with Riverside and provided much better playing conditions for the members. As you can see by the picture, some of these, this is almost noon. Many of these areas only got 2 to 3 hours of sunlight a day. So it's very difficult to grow Bermuda grass, especially, or any grass in this much shade. This is number 15, the famous par 3 that David Toms made the hole-in-one in on number 2001. Those are the Zeon tees, and that's in December, so you can see it does retain color much longer. But another key here is these are par 3 tees. I get a lot of questions about divots. The Zeon shows less divots, and the golfer makes less divots on the Zeon because it's more dense, and it recovers quicker because it recovers from the rhizomes right under the surface. So that's one question that always comes up, is divots, and from my experience, we have half the divots we used to have. Winter damage, you can see these places that are brown along the edges. We always had winter damage in cold winters because of the shade. Well, Zeon is hardy. It's been 20 below and the Zeon's lived through, so it's a very winter hardy grass as well. The game has changed a lot. People want they want more distance. This is a good friend of mine he's always looking for distance. But the game has changed. Business has changed. We've got less money to work with. We've got less water. We've got less people. So having a grass that requires less inputs is really important. We all know the high expectations that come every spring when people see Augusta, and they instantly say, why can't our golf course be like this? Most of them don't realize Augusta is closed all summer and nobody plays there, and it looks very different in the summer. But nonetheless, we have high expectations. Some people call it the Augusta syndrome. Uh, the members go back to their home course and are not happy because their golf course doesn't look like Augusta. I was always jealous of the major championship golf courses up north that had the bent grass fairway and the bluegrass rough. They had great definition. We did not have that. I wanted to come up with what I call the wow factor, the use of different grasses that would produce a striking contrast between the fairway and the rough. And when you think about it, if you've got to build a new golf course or renovate one, which grasses to use? It's a very big decision. It's an expensive decision. It's also a decision that will impact the golf course and the club for years to come. So it's not one to be taken lightly. What I said about definition, this is the Highlands course in 2001 at the PGA Championship. Very little definition, even though you had 2.5-inch rough. With one grass, it's very hard to get good definition. This happens to be Shinnecock Hills before the Open. And you see the great definition they have with the pole fairways and the bluegrass rough. Well, change is one constant thing at the club. We're always looking to improve. So we did a renovation in 2003 on Riverside that really changed the club. One of the things I tell people, you always got to be able to look out for and keep your eyes open to the next best thing coming along. In America, we laugh at those now. Our jobs are tough. Many times that bullseye is on our back because members expect very high quality every day when they come to the golf course. I sure hope somebody's laughing at these. So how do you decide what to use? Which grass to use? Well, you can go to your plant breeders. University tests are always very good to look at. You get a lot of good information from your sod producers and their experts. One of my favorite things is to test the golf course on the grass on your golf course. That is one of the best ways to do it. I know there at PGA Catalonia, there's some Zeon being tested there. So you can really get a good idea when you've got it in your weather, your environment, with your players, and see how it does on your location. You can talk to people who have had success, some have had failures. That helps eliminate some things. Look at your location. What is your weather? What are your goals? Are you having a major championship, maybe a Ryder Cup, or is it just member play? But the big thing is that local weather, because that determines a lot of the grasses that if they'll survive or not. Observation. I always enjoy going and looking at other golf courses and see what has worked there. The other thing I look at is what are your problems? What kind of problems do you have? For us, it was shade on our championship tees. Winter damage. We had constant winter damage from the shade from the pine trees. We had heavy play, lots of carts. Drainage is always an issue. That's something that we always look at. What is your irrigation quality of the water and the quantity? Do you have enough good water to grow different grasses? We always ran into a very poor spring playing condition because the Bermuda grass deteriorates after the winter with the rain and the cart traffic, and would not be green when everybody came through on their way to Augusta. So we wanted to improve our spring playing conditions. Members like green grass. We had gone through the overseeding, and overseeding was good the first 2 years, and then it went downhill from there. Members understand brown grass in the winter, but they don't understand brown grass in the summer. And after 2 years of overseeding, the summer conditions got worse each year to the point they said no more overseeding. Are you trying to make money, be profitable? That's a big thing. A lot of golf courses are in the business to make money. Another big thing is competition for members. We're in an area where there's several private clubs, so in order to keep the membership full, you've got to offer great playing conditions. And we see the expectations continue to rise. People want to play on a green, good, well-maintained golf course. I don't think that will ever change. So which grasses do you use? One of the things in our country we found is you really need to have your choice made well before you get to this point in construction. Buying the grass, putting a deposit down, having it reserved is very important. Another question we have to ask is why not plant 419? Our members asked me that very question, so I had to come up with answers. Well, there's several problems. One is spring dead spot, and then the poor spring playing conditions. Winter damage. We constantly had damage in the winter. In about 3 to 4 out of 10 years, we would have winter damage. Mowing frequency. We would mow fairways to keep it really looking good 4 days a week. It made a very difficult rough where the ball drops down to the bottom. The 419 doesn't hold the ball up well. Rhizoctonia patch, brown patch, has become a problem. And here's an interesting one. If you do what everybody else does, you can only be as good as them. So if you want to elevate your golf course and your playing conditions, you got to do something different. How do you set yourself apart from others? That was a big question for us. Our members wanted the golf course to be better than everybody else, not equal to. People always ask about Zorza patch. Well, this is actually not Zorza patch. This is large patch or brown patch on Bermuda grass. We've had a real problem with it. So we wound up having to battle spring dead spot in the rough and large patch in the fairways. So we're battling 2 diseases instead of 1. Spring dead spot has become a real problem in our area. You can see the area that wasn't overseeded, just how much spring dead spot is actually under the ryegrass on the driving range tee. So that doesn't make for a very good spring at all. Another thing we found is the segregation that occurs in Bermuda grass. This is the second fairway on Highlands. We asked CBS not to show any overhead shots so that the TV audience wouldn't see how bad the contamination was in this fairway. We talked about divots earlier, but as you can see here, you can see the stems where the Bermuda grass, the Zorza grass comes back so good from those rhizomes and stems. It doesn't grow as fast as Bermuda, but it doesn't have to creep in from the sides. It comes back from underneath. If you have driving ranges, this was our driving range practice area after the U.S. Amateur, where we had 312 players that almost took all the grass off the range. But in 1 month, this was covered back and back open for the members. Especially when Zeon is sodded, it sets a deep rhizome system that recuperates quickly. So we asked the question too, why not plant another Bermuda grass? Well, are they time tested? Do they offer a marked improvement over 419? Can you kill the old Bermuda grass? Well, that's a big problem. There's nothing on the market that will eliminate 100% of the existing Bermuda grass. So how do you keep that from coming back? Fortunately, with Zeon, you can spray there's several products you can spray to keep the Bermuda grass from coming back up through the zoysia. But there's nothing you can do if you put another Bermuda grass down. Some of the old grass will come back, and there's no way to control that. I'm often asked about, can you sprig zoysia? Well, the answer is yes. You can sprig any grass, and then it's how much time does it take. So these are sprigs that were planted on June the 20th, hand shook, very thick cover, and then top dressed. 20 days after planting, you can see there's a little progress there. One of the things you always about Zeon and the zoysia grasses, you'll always see the rhizomes coming up underneath the sand that you don't see on the surface. So there's a lot more going on underneath the soil than you realize. So you have to just be patient. 47 days after sprigging, very good coverage, and then 90 days it's filled in and perfect. So at this sprigging rate, you can sprig tees and cover in 90 days, which is very good. Fairways at a lower rate would probably be 120 days. This is just a shot of before and after to see the difference in the design and the way the golf course looks with the two different grasses. The zoysia stripes up very nicely and really looks good. This is my favorite hole, number 2. Good players really love the way the ball sits up on the zoysia. This is a good friend of mine who's a very good player with an architect, and they were checking out the zoysia at a golf course in the local area, and they really like the way the ball sits up and plays. Look at the contrast you get between the Bermuda grass in the rough and the Zeon in the fairway. A great contrast that people really enjoy. You know where the fairway is. When you look at 18 on the Riverside, all Bermuda grass, it's very difficult to get that same type of contrast when you've just got one grass. Now, managing it. One of the things I always tell people on zoysia grass is moderation. Everything you do in moderation, whether it's water, fertility, grooming, top dressing. It doesn't grow as fast, so everything you do has to be done in moderation. So that's a key word to remember as you go forward. Very little nitrogen. Once the grass is established, it requires very little fertility unless you just like to mow grass, because we grew it on a half a pound of nitrogen a year, and it looked very good, very dense, decent color. If we wanted color, we'd add some iron, but it really doesn't require near as much as Bermuda grass does. We figured probably 75% less for Zeon. We would keep a good bit of potash on there to help hold the ball up, keep the plant, and you also do soil tests to make sure you actually need that. We did spray sometimes two applications of tebuconazole for large patch, because that is an issue in the fall and in the spring when the nighttime temperatures in the 50s. When you have moisture, you can have some zoysia patch, but the cost of these products have come down greatly in the United States. Weed control, we've actually sprayed Roundup on it when it's totally dormant. We've also used Ronstar and Spectacle, and that's worked very well. If you want more, if you do go dormant, you want some color, you can either use paint or a pigment in December and enhance the green up in the spring. That's a very good program, because you never lose the playing surface and you still have good green color. We have applied Cutlass. If you do want to mow even less, you can use Cutlass and Primo. It's a good combination that works well. We would do that for tournaments and special occasions, or if we had a tournament and we were afraid we were going to have rain and not be able to mow, this was a great program to use. Our nitrogen source was a sprayable nitrogen. Since we wanted to just put the nitrogen on the fairways, we didn't want to do a granular application everywhere, so we used the product that was actually 30-00 slow release nitrogen. We mowed generally 2 days a week. If we had an event on Saturday or the weekend, we might mow 3 times, but we always used groomers set just at about the height of cut to make sure we kept the grass growing upright and initiated new shoot growth. We would mow fairways at 8.89 millimeters, tees a little bit lower. This was a good height. Some of the members liked it higher, but that's one thing you can adjust depending on how good your players are. The better players obviously like it lower. The higher handicappers like the mowing height a little higher. We do, as I said, we do groom with each mowing, and we do a vertical mowing with a 5-plex every month. We would go different directions each time. We only did 1 aerification with solid tines each year. Our soil is so poor that pulling cores of red clay were very hard to pick up and clean up, so we just use a solid tine and then top dress after that, after each aerification. It's just a picture of the mowing with the groomers. You can see it throws out a few clippings there. People have asked me, what do I like about Zeon? Well, I like everything about it. I love the contrast that we get with the Bermuda grass rough. Some of the holes are so pretty going up and down the hill. You always know where the fairway is. I think it gives you a very good visual target. You look at number 16 before going up the hill, and then you look at it now. It looks much more pleasing and much more defined. One of the other things that the zoysia does not have leaf hairs and doesn't collect moisture and dew on the leaf, so for an event there's no need to drag the fairways. And you can see the Bermuda grass has so much more rough, and that also comes into play when you have frost. You won't have frost on the fairways because there's no moisture there, but you'll see frost in the rough everywhere. So this is a shot in December, and the fairways are still green, and there's frost on all the rough. So it almost gives you an overseeded look. And then spring green up, it's green by March, and we're already mowing. And these are the cherry trees that bloom, and that was very nice to have green grass before the first week of April when everyone came in from Augusta on their way to play there and see the tournament. We don't miss a tee time those 2 weeks before and after Augusta. Just another shot of my favorite hole, number 2. See how green it is there in March. Gets the season off to a very good start. So where can I use Zeon? That's a question I'm asked many times. Well, everywhere. There's a weather station there in Johns Creek that's beside the golf course, and you can go in and compare your weather to this location and get a good idea of what our growing conditions are there. It's at GeorgiaWeather.net, and we're listed as Johns Creek. So if you're curious about comparing your weather to our weather to see the differences, it gives you a great deal of information that goes back to 1996, and we've got over 20 years of data there. You can use Zeon in the fairway or as intermediate rough or the deep rough. One of my favorite places is in the shade. It does great in the shade of trees. This is a golf course out in Briggs Ranch out in San Antonio, and this has been in the shade of live oaks, evergreen oaks, for 12 years, and it has thrived. So if you've got shade, it's a great plant. This Dr. Milt Engelke there, looking at how well the Zeon's doing in the shade. So anytime you've got trees along the edge of the fairways or shady tees, Zeon is a great choice in those areas. You've seen this picture before, but once we put the Zeon on these tees, we never had another problem with grass there. We talk about water and water quality. If you look in this picture, look at the oak trees in the background. The water there at this golf course was so bad, it burned the leaves on the trees. But look how well the fairway, Zeon fairway, is doing. So it can handle poor water quality, high salt content, almost as good as Paspalum. And if you pick up the clippings, the Zeon and the zoysia grasses actually collect the salt. You can take the salt away and lower the salt content by removing clippings. So if water quality is an issue, Zeon is certainly a great alternative. What kind of problems do you have? Or what kind of issues do you deal with if you grow Zeon? Well, one of the things is keeping your reel sharp. It does take more sharpening to keep the reel sharp than Bermuda grass. When we had one golf course with Zeon and one golf course with 419, we would mow the Zeon for a couple of weeks, then send the mower to mow the Bermuda grass, because it would still cut the Bermuda grass but not the zoysia. So we would rotate our mowers. I'm not sure how well it shows up in the picture, but this fairway was just shredding the leaf tip a little bit, not mowing clean as the T-mower was. So you just have to keep an eye on your mowing equipment. You're mowing less, so you have more time to do the real maintenance, but it's a tougher grass, so it is a little harder to cut than Bermuda grass. But most of us have good equipment to sharpen the reels, and we use the spin grinders, and it really worked. It wasn't a major problem for our mechanic. The Bernhard products are very good. Well, the last thing you want is a lot of rain. In July and August of, I think this was 2005, we had 38 inches of rain, which is probably a meter of rain. And anywhere the water stood in these drain areas, we had to replace some grass. So zoysia or any grass doesn't like standing in water in the hot heat of the summer. So we had to go in and put some drainage in all these areas. You can see this area where the water ran. You just have to go back and put some drainage in there if you're in an area that gets excessive rainfall. I put this one in because I think it's a little unusual. I took out in California, but that's a zoysia lawn that was never maintained. So you still got to maintain it. It's not bulletproof. You still have to manage it like you manage anything else. Too much nitrogen. One of the biggest mistakes I see growing zoysia grasses is too much nitrogen. And what does too much nitrogen do for you? Well, number one, it makes you mow more, but it also enhances the brown patch. This is a tee that we put a slow release nitrogen on during grow-in, and this is in May of the next year. The amount of large patch we had was unbelievable compared to all the other tees. So slow release nitrogen doesn't work well. High rates of nitrogen doesn't work well. Nitrogen too early or too late doesn't work well. Any of those can cause an excessive amount of large patch. I hope I'm going okay for the interpreters. I'm trying to slow down. This is one that not many people have seen. I call it glyphosate patch. It's actually a crew member went out and spot treated weeds with Roundup with a backpack sprayer, which put too much water, too much pressure. It got the Roundup down into the crown of the plant and actually killed it. So when we spray Roundup, we do it with a boom sprayer, low pressure, low volume, so you don't have this problem. But I thought you might enjoy seeing glyphosate patch. So there's a lot of things that when you look at a golf course or a home renovation, what are the benefits from Zeon? You get the wow factor because it is a beautiful plant. You can stripe it, excuse me, if you like to produce striping, you can certainly do that. You've got green color from March to Christmas almost, and if you want more, you can certainly paint. You get less mowing, probably in the neighborhood of 50 to 60% less mowing on Zeon fertilized properly. You get great contrast if you've got another grass in the rough. One of my favorites, no overseeding. Overseeding really causes problems in our area if you overseed year after year. No more winter damage. That's a big thing that not having to go through the resodding program in the spring is really important. You get better playing conditions with less inputs, and who wouldn't like that? Some of the best playing conditions you can have, but you do less to get that. That's important for sustainability of the game and the golf courses. One of the things we found when we did this renovation in 2002 and 3 was we had unintended consequences. Now remember, we just had the PGA in 2001. Once we opened up Riverside with the Zeon fairways, it was the preferred course to play. Guest play used to be 90% on the Highlands course. It dropped to 40. Guest play on Riverside was 10%. It went up to 60%. All of a sudden, our championship golf course that we had the PGA on in 2001 is now considered inferior to the Zeon course by members, and it's the preferred course for guests to play. That's something we did not see that coming at all. That was a real surprise to us. We never envisioned it changing the play on the golf course that much. So we had to go in and rebuild the Highlands course, excuse me, for the 2011 PGA Championship and put zoysia grass on those fairways because of the success of Riverside. So you can look at your situation, define your goals, study all the information, look at all the options that you have, talk with experts and talk with people who have had experience with these new grasses. And here's another big thing. Don't be afraid to try something new. Sometimes people are afraid to do something different, but to be better, you've almost got to do something different. Because if you do what everybody else does, you'll only be as good as they are. And most club members want their club to be the best. So just remember that. If you do what everybody else does, you can only be as good as they are. So why would you consider changing grasses and using Zeon? Number one, you get superior playing conditions. Many of us have water quality and water issues. Many of us have shade as the courses get older, the trees get bigger, you get more and more and more shade. Overseeding. Overseeding costs a lot of money. It costs time in the fall when you have to water to germinate the seed. It costs money to mow. It costs money to fertilize. It costs money to buy the seed. And it costs money in transition in the spring. So you can pay for the cost of the grass of converting to Zeon with the money you save from overseeding in 2 to 3 years. And then you got just the mowing cost and maintenance cost, and then so how do you set your course apart from others? This is certainly an option for that. So that's a reason to consider using Zeon. The new grasses we have available today make a significant difference in the playability, the visual contrast, and the long-term maintenance costs. The change to Zeon really changed my life and my career. It's given me so many opportunities to share that I've really enjoyed it. And now you have some in Spain there at PGA Catalunya. I hope you can take a look at it. I hope it's still doing well. It's a great grass to use. Zeon will soon be available. It's developed by Blade Runner Farms, and it will be available through Noble Green in the near future. If I can ever help any of you, you've got my email there. I'm happy to help in any way I can. I've got some more slides coming up that are going to show you some new things that we're working on, because I've been working with Blade Runner Farms for several years, and I do more with them now because we've got several new grasses to look at. But feel free to email me anytime. I'm happy to help any way I can. Another nice shot of the athletic club. We caught the rainbow just right. So I talk about now what's new. What are the new things we have coming? Many of you are familiar with Tifton and all the grasses that came from there that have the TIF 419, TIF green, all those. Well, now Dr. Brian Schwartz at Tifton is working on zoysia grasses. These are just some of the crosses that he's got that we're going to be using for testing to see how good they work in the future. A lot of different growing habits. The one on the left that's covered the pot, low height, and looks like it'll be good for greens. The one on the right probably won't make it very far, but we've got a lot of things to select. We've got some varieties for greens. We've got a test green, and you can see this one did not survive the low mowing. This is a shot of David Doge. The plugs on the table were brought to Tom Black at TPC Sugarloaf in May of this year. So take a close look at those. Those are the plugs. David gave me those plugs. I took those plugs home, stuck them in the plastic bag, put them in the refrigerator on May 27th. 100 days later, this is what the plugs look like when I took them out of my spare refrigerator. That's 100 days in the dark at 34 degrees, which would be maybe 1 degree Celsius. They look great. Amazing shade and cold tolerance. I took those, put them in pots just to make sure they were still alive and growing, and they certainly did. They make a great green surface. That's the one called M85. This is compared to Champion, so you can see you can get a very good green surface from that. This is a picture, close-up picture of M85 and Champion. It's very hard to tell the difference, but the Champion is the one on the upper part of the screen. This is a test site with M85 on the lower right, Champion on the left, L1F on the right. None of this has been sprayed with paint. This is the natural green color that the zoysia holds. This is in January of last year. You can see much difference in the color, but that's just the natural part of the zoysia. And when you look at the growth habit, look how all the leaves come off the rhizomes at 90 degrees, which means less grain, less grooming, better putting surface, we think. This is a shot of some of the ones we use for greens, 308, M60, M85, and L1F in the back. These plugs have been, or squares have been dried and washed, so the color is not great, but look at the texture. And then when you turn it over, look at the root system, especially M60. Look at the size of the rhizome system there. So we feel like these plants have very good recuperative potential and will be very hardy for use on greens. We've got another one called Cutlass, which is almost has a native plant look. It's a coarser type, but the ball sits up and you get a seed head that gives you a native look. It's great for slopes. You can mow it one to two times per year and still have a playable rough that gives you a lot of contrast, but you can still find your ball and play it. A lot of our native areas are almost unplayable, and you get weeds, you get trees, they're in a lot of trouble. But this looks like a plant that you could use around tees, behind greens, out of the way areas, on slopes, that would give you a great native look, and yet you could find the ball and play out of it. This is a shot of Trinity Forest out in Dallas. You can see how well it works on that slope there, and it gives you a good contrast. And it keeps the ball from going all the way down into the hazard. This is a close-up shot of L1F where the marker is against Champion on the green. So you can see the kind of texture and color you get from it. This is Trinity Forest out in Dallas. This is the blow-up of that previous shot. You would know this was in Dallas. You'd think it was in Scotland or Ireland. But the L1F will give you a lynx-like look, which is what Ben Crenshaw and Bill Coore were doing here. You've got Champion on the green and L1F and all these other areas, and then some native grasses in the higher grassed area. But they mow this at a quarter of an inch. It's beautiful, and it plays like a lynx-style golf course. This is a picture. On the left is L1F, and on the right is Zeon. This is the Tiger Woods' new course in Houston, where Eric Bowers, the superintendent, got the Golf Digest Best New Golf Course for this year. I took Michael Jordan. Some of you may know Michael Jordan, the basketball player. He's building a golf course in Florida. We took him there to see the golf course so he could touch and feel and see how he liked it. And they're going to put Zeon on his golf course down in Hobestown, Florida. So it's a beautiful spot, and Zeon has worked very well. We're happy that it worked well on the Olympic golf course. We had great success there and here at Blue Jack. So we've got some great grasses out there, and we're looking forward to having growers in Spain, so you will be able to use some of those on your courses there. Well, thank you very much. I'll take some questions now if anybody has questions or wants to chat.
Hi, Ken. Thank you very much for your presentation. Yes, there are two questions. One from Carlos Venegas. What about competition between Zeon and 4819 between fairway and rough?
Over time, the Zeon will grow out into the 419. While it doesn't grow as fast, it's much stronger. We edged that line about every 2 to 3 weeks. That's one thing you can do to keep it from spreading, but most people expect the Bermuda to grow into the Georgia, but it's actually the other way around.
Okay, and another question from Antonio Miranda from Portugal. How can I change Bermuda to Zeon? Sodding or the Bermuda? Which is the best way to do the change?
Well, I prefer sodding versus sprigging, because once you spray the Bermuda grass out, you still have some live plants there. If you sod over it, there's a much greater chance it will die than if you sprig and water and it's open. We had some areas on our golf course that we sprigged, not with 419, but with the rough grass we use called Tifton 10. The only place we saw grass come through was in the sprigged area. Everywhere we sodded, we saw nothing come through. So I think you get the best job if you go in, spray the Bermuda grass out, strip off the top layer, and sod.
Okay, Another question. In high temperatures, how is it performing, the Zeon?
Well, it's done great in Atlanta. We've been as high as 107. What would that be? 40 degrees Celsius, maybe 40, 42.
Wow, high temperatures.
Yeah.
Okay. Another question from Javier Schapt. He's from Peru.
Peru.
From Peru, yes. Is working this grass on the salinity environment? Bueno, do you understand? How does it perform with salinity?
Very good. It's actually been used to reduce salinity and help improve the soil because it actually pulls the soil out. And if you remove clippings, you take the salt away. So it will grow in almost the same areas that paspalum will. The salt tolerance is almost that as good as paspalum.
Okay, there is another question. Mariano Carreras, he congratulates you. He asks for a chemical to control Remedia and Zoysia.
Fusilade, Turflon, Acclaim, those are the three we've used.
Okay. Another one. Is Zoysia more aggressive than Kikuyu grass? Do you have an experience with it?
Whoa. That's an interesting question because when you think about kikuyu, it grows at a lower temperature. It's almost like kikuyu is not a cool season grass, but it's not a warm season grass either. Because you think in the areas where you see it, there's a lot of poa that grows too. So if you put Zeon in the area where kikuyu thrives, I'm not sure it would outcompete it because it might be a little bit too cool for the Zeon. But that's an interesting thing to see. We've got some planted in California, and we hope to get it into some areas so we can see how it would work against kikuyu, because there is a good bit of kikuyu in California.
Okay.
Interesting question, though. Thank you.
The guy who asked you is from the south of Portugal, from Algarve, Antonio Miranda. So I think that he has some troubles with kikuyu and in his golf course.
Yeah, Portugal's a great place. I've been there a couple of times.
Yes. Okay. No more questions right now. If you let me, I'm gonna present the next webinar. So we are gonna give you a few seconds for if there are more questions.
Yeah.
Okay. What I'm gonna do is let me convert my to presenter, and then we'll give some time.
Well, thank all of you for listening and being there. I've enjoyed it very much. I hope it's helpful to you, and we look forward to having some grass there for you to buy sometime soon.
Yes. Yes, just a second, please. The next webinar. I suppose you know Micah Boots.
Yes,
have you ever worked with him?
Yeah, we did seminars together in Japan about 3 years ago.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Tell him I said hello. He's very good.
Okay, I will for sure. So, I'm gonna speak in Spanish. No, that doesn't matter. Translator, interpreter is doing her job. For 12th January at 5 p.m., Dr. Mike Woods is gonna present a webinar. He's gonna talk about MLSN guidelines. I think this is a very interesting new guideline for the fertilizing programs. So I think it's going to be a very interesting webinar as well. And we have, well, for January, we have 3 webinars. We will have a Dr. Alfredo Martinez and Dr. William Cruiser. Do you know William Cruiser and from University of Nebraska, Lincoln?
No, I don't know him.
Okay. He's working with PGRs and the growing degree days model. So he's developing a growing degree model to establish the application program with the PGRs. So it's interesting as well. So let's see if there is another question for you. Okay, yeah, there is another one from Fernando Suarez. Okay, he's asking if Zeon is Zosia japonica or Zosia tenuifolia?
It's a cross that was done. To give you a little history, Dr. Jack Murray and Dr. Milt Engelke went to the Far East in the early 80s and brought all this plant material back. Dr. Engelke went to Texas A&M and developed his. Dr. Murray was with the USDA and he developed his, and Zeon was one of his first crosses. So it's probably closer to Matrella, but it is a cross that he made. And then David Doge bought his collection when the USDA ended their program, and Dr. Murray got cancer and was close to death. He sold David Doge, that owns Blade Runner Farms, his entire collection. And Dr. Brian Schwartz is now continuing to develop grasses out of that collection that he had. Texas A&M is not doing much anymore since Dr. Engelke left, and Dr. Engelke actually works with us now at Blade Runner Farms and Team Zoysia. So we've got a great group of people working on it, and we'll have some more good grasses to come in the future.
Okay, perfect. So, well, there are no more questions. So, well, thank you very much, Ken. For me,
thank you.
For me, a pleasure and an honor as well to have you here in Campus del Césped, because I think that well, I appreciate very much that a turf specialist like you can collaborate with us in this educational platform. So thank you very much. I appreciate it very, very much.
Okay, thank you very much. I enjoyed it. I look forward to coming back to Spain too. I love the food, and I love the gazpacho.
Yes, of course, I love gazpacho as well. Okay, for sure. We are going to wait for you. Okay, let me speak in Spanish to say goodbye to the attendees. Bueno, pues nada, muchas gracias por vuestra asistencia. Tanto Ken, Mangum como yo apreciamos que hagáis preguntas. Yo creo que en el fondo lo más interesante al final de esta experiencia es poder intercambiar y resolver dudas sobre la temática que se está hablando, o sea que agradezco vuestra colaboración. Al final, ahora cuando cerremos el webinar, tendréis unas preguntas sobre valoración del webinar que sí que os agradecería que las respondierais porque bueno, pues nos interesa para ir valorando la calidad del servicio. Y por mi parte nada más, recordaros que hasta el 12 de enero pasaremos las Navidades, no habrá el próximo webinar con el Dr. Butz. O sea que, por mi parte, nada, desearos buenas vacaciones y felices fiestas y nos vemos pasado los Reyes. Bueno, Ken, thank you very much again,
Thank you.
And I hope to see you soon.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas as well. Bye-bye.
Bye.